Mandizibulisele kubabukeli beMpuma Kapa TV. Amaqhawe ethu ayabulela ngenkxaso yenu kunye neMpuma Kapa okubana singene kumakhaya enu sincokole izinto that are related to Liberation Heritage. Liberation Heritage is one of the important aspects of our being. Without that history, we will lose a lot. Amaqhawe ethu seeks and strive to ensure that those unsung heroes and those events that are not mentioned get mentioned. Amaqhawe ethu wants to bring this to you at home so that you understand. My name is Yongamela Manene. Today we are discussing a very interesting topic which is going to be presented in the form of a lecture first, and then we're going to have a conversation. Isingesi siyasibetha uxolweni kunye nobawo uBond Mpumelelo Nyoka, ingcali yezomthetho, umntana walapha eGqeberha oye waneminwe wabanzi kwindaba yomthetho. Uyaziwa ke ngabantu balapha ekuhlaleni eBhayi. Ukunye nathi ke ezoncokola kunye nathi ngemba osematheni nothethwa ngawo namhlanje uzasinika ke lecture on Lesotho land claims of some parts of South Africa. Uzanityebisela kanicacisele ngayo yonke into nquliqhu. Nimamele abanako bathatha notes kuba kukho amagama anzima azathi awakhankanye. Naye azakwenza into yokubana ufune ukhe uhambe uyoziphandela ngokwakho. Amaqhawe ethu ayabulela ngenkxaso yenu, siyabulela ngokubana niphulaphule. Ndizisa kuni ke ubawo uBond Nyoka xa esinika le lecture.
Good day. My name is Mpumelelo Nyoka. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that is current in South Africa, about land claims of a single opposition member of Lesotho regarding certain parts of South Africa. I wish first to thank Amaqhawe ethu for hosting me. Literally translated is our heroes. Thank you. I wish to thank you for affording me this opportunity of doing this lecture. Yes, and especially the chairperson, Mzolis. Thank you very much. By way of introduction, I wish to begin as follows. An opposition member with a single seat in the 120-member Lesotho National Assembly proposed a motion calling upon Lesotho to claim parts of land in South Africa, these being the whole or part of Free State, parts of Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Mpumalanga. Whether or not the Lesotho Parliament passes this motion, the issue needs to be explored and finally put to rest so as not to burden our grandchildren with it, if it were to arise again. On the face of it, to me, if I can put it strongly, this suggestion seems like an act of aggression or an act of irritation against South Africa. The colonial conquest wars in general and the Mfecane chiefdom conflicts in particular of the 18th and 19th centuries caused land seizures and dispossessions and population displacements, leading to untold hardships of loss of lives, loss of property, and loss of dignity. In the aftermath, new territories and populations were born. For example, Lesotho, Botswana, then called Bechuanaland, and Eswatini, then called Swaziland. In 1989, a treaty between Britain and the Dutch settlers of Free State defined the borders of Lesotho and this agreement entailed an undertaking, this treaty entailed an undertaking by the Dutch settlers of the area not to seize more land from King Moshoeshoe's Lesotho Kingdom. In the previous year of 1868, Lesotho, like Botswana and Eswatini, sought protection from Britain. They were annexed and became British protectorates or British sub. Only in 1966 did Lesotho become an independent state. That is 97 years later, after its borders were drawn for it, without prior consultation and consent from it, in the 1869 Treaty of Aliwal North. That is what the treaty was called, the Treaty of Aliwal North of 1869. In the 1884-85 Berlin Conference, the colonial principals agreed amongst themselves to draw the borders of their territories, colonial territories or colonial subjects, and also to prevent conflicts amongst themselves. Here too, no colonial subject had a say in the drawing and imposition of borders. Lesotho's borders, like many others, was retained as it earlier was in 1869. Thus, Britain continued its colonial role as master and protector of Lesotho, as well as Botswana and Eswatini, from 1868 to 1966 for Lesotho and Botswana, and 1968 for Eswatini. Before then, the Union of South Africa, formed in 1910, intermittently made demands on Britain to agree to reincorporate the three territories into South Africa. Such demands were made until 1961 by South Africa, when South Africa became a republic. Even though it was an apartheid republic, it became a republic. It stopped partly due to a United Nations resolution of 1960, calling upon colonial powers to grant independence to its colonial subjects. The United Nations General Assembly passed several resolutions for African countries to get independence and for lost lands to be retained. Those countries included Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, Tanzania, all those countries that were still under colonial rule. The one that related to Lesotho was Resolution 1514 of 14 December 1960. It did not only relate to Lesotho, it included the three territories: Lesotho, Botswana, and Eswatini. Those three were clubbed together at all times. So this was Resolution 1514 of 14 December 1960 of the General Assembly of the UN. This resolution not only called upon colonial principals to grant independence, it called upon them to ensure that lost lands were returned to those territories. Britain did not heed both calls, except 6 years later for Lesotho and Botswana, and 8 years later for Eswatini, when it granted independence to them in 1966 for Lesotho and Botswana, and 1968 for Eswatini. It did so defiantly, because from 1960, when it was called, Britain did not do anything until 1966, for reasons best known to it for doing so. Now, we deal with the merits of this claim for parts of South Africa by this lone Lesotho opposition MP who belongs to the Basotho Convenient Movement. Number one, the UN resolution of 1960 called upon colonial powers to do two things. Number one, to deliver independence and assist in restoring any lost lands to its colonial subjects. Britain only did one thing, that is delivering independence, and defiantly so 6 years later, as I said. It failed to assist in restoring any lost lands on behalf of its subjects. This failure cannot be blamed on anyone else, and it arguably expired on the attainment of independence in 1966. From 1868 to 1966, Britain never called upon any alleged land dispossessor for the return of any such land to Lesotho. For all those years, the Britain was on it to do so, but it failed to do so from 1868 to 1966. Number two, Lesotho is or might claim some parts of South Africa. I'm saying Lesotho itself because still a proposal by this MP in the parliament, Lesotho has not adopted that as a formal claim. But assuming that it adopts it as a formal claim, Lesotho itself was created out of the wreckage of Mfecane, and when its kingdom under Moshoeshoe also conquered and absorbed other neighboring communities, including that of Chief Sekonyela in the south, will it first relinquish all such lands, leading by example? Because the applicable principle of law is clear that no one else can seek justice with dirty hands. If you want parts of land, you must be prepared to give that which is not yours, so that you can demonstrate your sincerity. We can judge you by your good deeds. 3, Lesotho was not a sovereign state during or after Mfecane to then wish to claim lost lands in terms of modern international law. It was a colonial subject under Britain, and possible legitimate land claims ought to have been made by Britain on its behalf, since sovereignty over Lesotho was exercised by Britain on behalf of Lesotho. So the party that had the right to do so was the one that had sovereignty, because power was with it, Britain. And for 97 years, Britain never made any such attempts. Instead, it wanted Lesotho to be part of the Union of South Africa in 1910. Because in 1891, it requested Lesotho to join the old South Africa. Lesotho declined. In 1910, when the Union of South Africa was formed, Britain again invited Lesotho to join. It said no. So it did the opposite instead of what it ought to have done. Number 4, the Organization of African Unity, the OAU, in 1964, adopted the Cairo Declaration in Cairo. It was called the Cairo Declaration, which recorded that African states agree that their newly independent countries will recognize the borders inherited from colonial powers to avoid starting conflicts in the future. Fifthly, later, the OAU's successor, the African Union, has the Constitutive Act, whose Article 4B stipulated the principle of African states respecting borders existing on achievement of independence. So this principle was respected and upheld by African states from 1964 to 2000 and beyond. Both South Africa and Lesotho are AU members, African Union members, and signatories of this act, the Constitutive Act, which binds all the African states that are members of the AU, as well as those that are not members. They are bound by this principle. I repeat, South Africa and Lesotho are bound by this principle. The African leaders based these resolutions or principles on an international law principle called uti possidetis, which simply means colonial boundaries, however arbitrarily drawn by the imperial powers, are to be respected. That is the principle of uti possidetis. In the frontier dispute case involving Burkina Faso and Mali, in 1986, International Court of Justice reports at page 567, the International Court of Justice held that this practice applied to a new state from the moment it became independent. So the principle of uti possidetis demonstrated in the 1964 Cairo Declaration and Article 4B of the Constitutive Act in 2000 renders stillborn any state's claim for land from other fellow African states. So South Africa could easily raise this principle and the AU resolutions and principle as a good defense just on its own without going to other defenses that are available in its arsenal. It applied to Lesotho when it became independent in 1966. That resolution and principle applied to Lesotho as early as 1966, not now when it became independent. And by becoming a member of the Organization of African Unity and of the AU subsequently afterwards, by implication it was endorsing all its principles that were adopted and still apply. 6, in order for any claim to be a valid claim, different from protests made internally by that country, it has to be made first peacefully to the other state in compliance with the Charter of the United Nations, whose purpose is to ensure that any disputes are settled peacefully in order, again, another purpose of the United Nations, in order to develop friendly relations among states. So peace is key than resorting to arms, as was before the formation of the United Nations, which caused the First World War and Second World War. We're done with those wars now. The cardinal consideration is peaceful negotiations about any topic, however thorny it might be. If a peaceful settlement cannot be reached, then second, is referred to the International Court of Justice for adjudication and final resolution. The International Court of Justice is an organ of the United Nations formed in terms of the United Nations Charter for resolution of world issues, all issues in the world. Whether a member of the UN or not, the International Court of Justice is the judiciary body seized to attend to judicial matters. From 1966 to now, Lesotho never made any valid claim to either the old South Africa from 1966 to 1993, or the new one, the democratic South Africa, from 1994 up to now. Internal noises by Lesotho at times do not constitute valid claims in terms of international law. What is more, Lesotho never raised this issue in any African forums like SADC and the African Union. It's attending yearly or twice a year, once in 2 years, meetings of the African Union, and regularly in SADC. This issue was never raised. So also in law, it is estopped. I'll explain the concept of estoppel. It is estopped from now denying the representation or impression it is making to the entire world by its inaction, that it is okay with the status quo, it is okay with the current position. Estoppel is where you give a representation that a certain set of facts is like this, and you give the impression that you agree with it. You cannot later deny what impression you gave about that. That is called the principle of estoppel. It applies in civil law. It also applies in international law. Such inaction is called the principle of estoppel and is recognized also by international law. In the case of Cambodia versus Thailand, the Temple of Preah Vihear case of 1962, the International Court of Justice, in Report 6 at page 30 to 32, there was a border territorial dispute referred to the International Court of Justice between Cambodia and Thailand regarding a temple. The evidence showed that Thailand, in its past conduct, had accepted that the temple fell within Cambodia, with the result that the International Court of Justice ruled that it was stopped from later reasserting its claim to it. 7, if such a claim were to be made, we're talking about practicality now, if such a claim were to be made, then Lesotho will simply be attempting to chew more than it could swallow, because its size will only be a third of the combined sizes of the lands it seeks. For example, Lesotho is only 30,335 square meters, whereas Free State alone is 129,825 square meters. And Lesotho's GDP is 43 billion, whereas Free State's is 218 billion. How would it govern and finance a Lesotho that is times 3? How will it do it? 8thly, what about the affected people in both South Africa and Lesotho? If the two states were to reach an agreement, then they will have an international agreement of cession by South Africa of certain parts of its land. Cession is where you give part of a territory to another country. It's called cession in this context. In terms of our Constitution, Section 231, for it, that is the international agreement, to be binding, it has to be approved by a majority of both houses of parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Council of Provinces. Besides Parliament, the people of the affected areas of those provinces, that is Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, Mpumalanga, KZN, have to be consulted. Not only consulted, they have to agree to such cession. For instance, in 1982, the South African regime attempted to cede Kangwana and the Ingwavuma district of KwaZulu-Natal, it was not KwaZulu-Natal, to Eswatini in pursuance of the Bantustan practice. But because the people concerned were not consulted and vigorously opposed the move to Swaziland, the matter was abandoned after a commission was formed under the former Justice Rumpf. It was called the Rumpf Commission. It was abandoned and discontinued in 1984 because the people were opposed. So people have to be consulted. It is good enough if the government was to reach an agreement, but people of those areas have to be consulted, and also provinces have to be altered. Will our government have the appetite to change the constitution just to accommodate cession of certain lands to Lesotho without any material benefit in the end? We have burning problems than that. Our government is not going to alter the constitution because provinces have to be altered. It's not going to take this matter to parliament by whatever majority just to accommodate that. So it's well and good if the executive can agree with the executive of Lesotho. But parliament is another step. It's a second arm of government. It might have difficulty as far as that. And as far as the Lesotho people are concerned, the Lesotho Constitution, in terms of Section 85, requires the parliament to approve a law that, for instance, includes the reincorporating of lands into it by a majority of the members of parliament. And on top of that, probably, it will require, after the approval of that of parliament, after 6 months, it must table the matter to the people of Lesotho in the form of a referendum. Those that are eligible to vote, who must agree by majority that they want those parts to come to Lesotho. It is doubtful that its parliament could pass such a law for one reason only. The parliament of Lesotho for several years, for more than 5 years now, if not 10, is fractured by coalition rule. It's difficult to reach 51% because of the coalition nature of Lesotho. Some of the ruling class is not in favor of this move, so it's not possible. It's difficult to say it will achieve that 51% in Lesotho as it is. There is no majority party there. And secondly, the people of Lesotho also have no such appetite for one reason only. The proposer of this motion was campaigning to be elected to the Parliament of Lesotho on this ticket, and they rejected him because they only gave him one seat as an opposition member. That indicates that they don't have an appetite for that. In the referendum, how can they then approve it by 51%? The energy and attention of his legislator must be given to other things than dramatically a fish trying to swallow a whale, because this is what it is. A fish is trying to swallow a whale. In conclusion, this proposed motion is politically, economically, and legally unsound and unfeasible. The African Union's less publicized Agenda 2063, the blueprint document of Africa's goals for the next 50 years, from 2013 to 2063, mainly calls for an integrated, politically united continent with seamless borders. Steps by one African state to take portions of another state at this advanced post-colonial period is both regressive and almost tantamount to an act of aggression, and is clearly disharmonious with the noble goal of the African Union. Without, however, completely throwing the body with the bath of water, the only good out of this is to shine the spotlight on two crucial aspects, namely the ugly phenomenon of colonial borders that were introduced, drawn, and imposed on us, divided kingships, e.g. the ancient kingdoms of Rwanda and Burundi, having Tutsis and Hutus, administered first as one country, as colony called Rwanda-Urundi, as a joint colony by Belgium. Ethnic divisions were exploited by colonial rule to the point of separation into two separate countries with the same two ethnic groups, two sides of the same coin, divided by an imposed artificial Belgian border. Both countries, Rwanda and Burundi, even gaining independence on the same day of the 1st of July, 1962, to show that it's not supposed to be separated. Our efforts and energy must be directed at dismantling, finally, these artificial borders between brother and brother, kingdom and kingdom. Secondly, and finally, from the beginning, the rules of engagement and legal superstructure on what is a state and what is sovereignty, for instance, was and is determined by foreign colonial powers. Africa has to wake up and define and implement its own political and legal superstructure in glorious pursuit of its mantra of African solutions for African problems. Because long before colonial invasion and subjugation of our people, we had strong, thriving states, inverted commas, states, functioning as kingdoms. For example, Ghana in 800 AD was a state, a good state, in economic enterprise with those that had no sinister motive engaging with Africa. It was succeeded later by Mali in the 14th century, which had one of the educational centers, which you know as Timbuktu, but Mali also declined. Western exploration, which had later sinister motives, finally led to Western colonialism, and with it, the eventual destruction of the original African political and legal superstructure. If we still somehow had it, it is doubtful that Lesotho will be murmuring about its lost lands. The kingdom states, if they were operating today, will surely have found and implemented an African solution using African logic and African law to appease Lesotho. Be that as may, in final closing, today, let us not fight for lost lands from our neighbors, the purpose of which exactly is unclear. It's not clear to me why Lesotho wants those lands. It's not clear. Or what any African country would want a certain portion of land. It's not clear. What is the material benefit in that? Let us fight for a united, prosperous, and safe Africa that should take its rightful place amongst the community of nations. And at our disposal, we thankfully have guiding documents that can usher us to our glorious destiny. The Agenda 2063 and NEPAD, New Partnership for Africa's Development, which are gathering dust in the libraries of our leaders. No one is doing anything about that. They are not publicized. Those are the arsenal to our destination, our destiny that we could use. We can then change again the rules of engagement in our continent, and implement African solutions for African problems. As the saying goes, God helps those who help themselves. Thank you.
Today we are having Ubawo Umpumelelo Ponyoka oze kuchaza ngeli bango lomhlaba waseLesotho. Nimvile ke ethetha idate ezinkulu, ethetha amagama amakhulu, ethetha nazo zonke treaties estopel sovereignty ilwimi lam liqinile. Onke la magama ke wakhankanyile nemva ethetha nani ke baphulaphuli. Ibalulekile ke le mbali, ibalulekile ke le nto ebethetha ngayo namhlanje njengambutho ofuna okokubana imbali yomzabalazo yaziwe intsukaphi. Kuloko ke sinaye ke namhlanje. Nizivele ke ndiyakholwa those that understand these terms are very comfortable, but there are those that do not understand these terms, that were not so privileged to have known about them. He spent a long time researching, doing everything to make sure that he comes and presents to you. As he was doing his lecture, there were lots of questions and answers that came up. We are giving you that opportunity of listening to his explanations, because he was speaking from a law jargon in terms of treaties, sections, sessions, and all. Now we are going to have that opportunity whereby he's going to explain. And hopefully we're going to continue with this debate so that people bayazi imbali yabo ivela kubantu babo nendlela ephandwe ngayo. Welcome again, Bond. Thanks for gracing Amaqhawe Ethu with your presence and your lecture. It was such a very much informative session that has taken us to understand what are we about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much also for inviting me again and for the compliments. Much appreciated.
Diabulela. Bond, you mentioned historical aspects in your introduction. You mentioned merits in your presentation, and you mentioned you made some conclusive statements in terms of what you were presenting to us today. Can you share with our viewers that how long did it take you to gather all this information as a small gesture?
Okay. I've been preparing for the past 3 weeks. And then I did a draft, and then I did a final draft that I finished yesterday, just before midnight. Yeah, but unfortunately I could not present it without looking at the speech. There are many things. I'm preparing for bail, I'm preparing for this. So the best thing I could do was to prepare everything on paper. So it took me about 3 weeks. Yes.
Niyazivela ke baphulaphuli. This is just not a small effort. It's a massive effort to gather all this information to present it to you. And now there are terms that personally I did not understand and my fellow did not understand. The historical aspect of your presentation had a number of treaties. And in terms of us as a Liberation Heritage Organization, Amaqhawe Ethu, can you give us just a brief of importance? If Mpulapuli wants to know, what does this have to do with Liberation Heritage?
Okay, first of all, a treaty is a term that is used politically, internationally. It means an agreement. It's used in that form because it's understood as such. The first treaty, if I can say in modern history, was the one after the First World War, signaling the end of the First World War in 1918. If you can remember, the Treaty of Versailles. It simply means the agreement of Versailles. So treaties are used in an international context. So this also, since it's an international matter, it was formed, it was described as a Treaty of Aliwal North long before the 20th century of the 1900s. So a treaty is contextualized as a political instrument. It means simply an agreement. You can't say I have a treaty with FNB to buy a house. No, it's an agreement with FNB. You enter into a contract. It's different. It's still the same thing, but its context is more political, intellectual, international. So you can't have a treaty to buy a car for what is it? A Golf. I've got a treaty with Volkswagen. I'm going to buy a Golf. No, it's still a Polo. So that's what it means, a treaty. But I'm using in that context.
Yes, this vele ke baphulaphula into yobana into ethethwa ngamazwe, i-contract ngamazwe ngelizwe ne-boundaries. Ayiyonto ifana nento yobana ndihambe ndiyofuna iteki kwa-Total Sports ndibuye ndine-treaty. No matter Total Sport angangapha overseas. Thank you.
So there have been many treaties after the First World War, also the treaties of the Second World War, and different scenarios. Treaties are used when there's an agreement.
1960 and Lesotho 1966 and Swaziland 1968. And I think you mentioned also Botswana.
Yeah. Okay, those three, they were kingdoms. Okay, first of all, after Imfecane, or during Imfecane, Sobhuza was based in Zululand then. Fled to northern Zululand and established an enclave there where he called it Eswatini after his own child. But because the British could not spell Eswatini, they called it Swaziland. Botswana was Botswana, but they called it Bechuanaland before the countries changed. So those kingdoms sought protection from further invasions and the dispossession of lands under Britain. They were always clubbed together as the trio, Botswana, Lesotho, and Swaziland. All the time they were kingdoms. So from 1868 they were British protectorates, and then in 1966 Lesotho and Botswana were granted independence. I don't know why there was a delay with Eswatini to 2 years later to 1968. So Britain governed them together as its territories. And the Colonial Validity Act also applied, you know, a law passed in Britain will apply to them. They couldn't just pass laws. It must be consented to, because they were colonies. That's why I call them colonial subjects. Yeah. So after that, after 1868, there were no further attacks against them. They were protected. Yeah, until they got independence. Then when the many African countries gained independence, there was about 30, there were about 18 of them in 1960. They influenced the General Assembly and said, look, there must be something more done about those that were still under colonial rule. Hence the 1960 Resolution 1514 was passed by the General Assembly, calling upon all the colonial principals to ensure that independence is obtained as well as getting lost lands. It was not directly suit. It was just a coincidental call for any lands that they lost, they must be restored. But the burden was on the colonial principal to do so, not on them.
Thank you. Kwintetho yakhe, kwi-lecture yakhe, he gave us some merits. I wish that we can talk about some of these merits. Umzekelo, the issue about the Cambodia-Thailand border treaty, if I'm calling it correctly, and any other merits in this, where he mentioned the issue of Estopel in the Cambodia issue. That's what I picked up. But I'm going to give it to you, Baonyok, Ndobana, usinike just a critical merit in those ones, so that abaphulaphuli can go further to research for themselves. Welcome back. Sihleli kunye nobawo uBond Nyoka.
Of course, the one that is very, very important to me, I only discovered like 3 days later as I was reading my book on international law. I wanted to understand why is it that they said countries that became independent are going to respect borders as they were, as they inherited them when they gained independence. Only when I was reading the book on international law, I came across this principle, that one of uti possidetis, that is, if colonial boundaries, however arbitrary they were, people must respect them when they gain independence. So I was applauding my forefathers, or Kwame Nkrumah, or Julius Nyerere, all those leaders who were there when the US formed, when they adopted that principle. I thought it was just their resolution. But it's based on international law. I nearly cried. Oh, these people were not just making a resolution. It was something that was based on international law, and it continued from 1964 under OAU to being part of the Constitutive Act, Article 4B of the Constitutive Act, which is an act of the African Union binding all members of the African Union. You know, the motive for that of that resolution is to say, we struggle for decades and centuries against colonial and apartheid minority rule. Now that you've got your independence, your first port of call is to make sure that you reconstruct your country rather than fighting about the spoils of colonial rule where they drew borders arbitrarily. Don't fight about borders. Fight about developing your people. Wow. That one will be attained later. I was so touched, I nearly cried. I'm not lying.
Sure.
They are not here to congratulate them, because I thought it was just their decision. It's international law, and no one told us about that. That highlights the state of our education. The victories and mindset of our forefathers is not highlighted. Only the negatives is highlighted. We know more about Mfecane, how Shaka was fighting against other people. We're not told the good stories. That must change. I'm highlighting that one. Before I finish, estoppel means if you give a certain set of an impression that a situation is A, you cannot deny it and say it's not like that. I gave you my car to ride for three years. Everyone knows that, he believes that, knows his car, he must support it. You can't, when the people, like the bank wants to repossess the car and say it's yours, say no, it's not mine. You gave the impression out there that it's yours, all is okay. You cannot thereafter deny it. Even went to pay for a renewal of the license, etc. So you give an impression there that the car is yours. You cannot therefore later on say it's not mine. That is what estoppel means in short, wow. If I can describe it. There is another one that you wanted me to mention briefly. Another concept?
No,
okay,
any that you chose.
The Cambodia thing, Thailand was acting as if the temple belonged to Cambodia all the time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was Cambodia, acted as if it was Cambodia. Now, when Cambodia wanted that temple, Thailand said, no, it's mine. The International Court of Justice said, in your conduct for many years, you acted as if it belonged to Cambodia. you gave an impression that it's okay, it's Cambodia. You cannot later on deny the representation that you gave to the world. Similarly to Lesotho, if I can close, people of Lesotho travel through South Africa. They go to Free State or Eastern Cape every day. South Africa has control of those areas that Lesotho is claiming. It cannot therefore say that it wants the land, because part of ownership is having permanent and consistent control of the area. It's not like a res nullius or a new land which you find and say there's no one occupying it, I'm taking it. So Lesotho people, even as you're speaking, are traveling through Free State, acknowledging that this part that we're going through is part of South Africa. Therefore, they must leave us alone. Thank you. Respectfully, I'm saying so.
Mapulapuli, you have heard it all. You have heard it from someone who knows well about it, someone who has researched about it, and making this very easy. At least Amaqhawe Ethu has brought you knowledge about a treaty. Amaqhawe Ethu have given you knowledge about Estopel, the Cambodia-Thailand temple issue. As a heritage organization, Liberation Heritage in particular, it is interesting that historically, Lesotho did not just came down as any form. There was a struggle about it. People fought. And uButbond uyasichazela apha uthi emotives that came with his research, wanting to say thank you to those wise old men, leaders of this liberation, that in such a way of their working, they are not mere liberation fighters, but also leaders that have set international standard law that are respected internationally. And uyasichazela nangezinto ezenzekileyo emveni kwayo yonke le quleqhu yolwelwa kwenkululeko ngabantu abamnyama. Babe nimamele kwi-lecture yakhe uthe there is NEPAD, there is Vision 2063, if I pick it up. Those are most important areas of focal point that people should engage in, instead of fighting for these mere borders that were imposed by circumstances to us, that came with colonial implications. Mandibulele ke bantu abathe basixhasa ngalo lonke ixesha kule nkqubo yethu. Ndibulele kubawo uNyoka ngokuthi avume ukuza azosityebisela le nkcazo yembali ebalulekileyo. Uyongamela Manene, Amaqhawe Ethu ayandibulela kakhulu namhlanje ngokusiphulaphula.